I've lived long enough to understand that life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. People think that once you reach a certain age, once you've survived the storms, the battles, the losses, the victories, nothing can shake you anymore. But that's not true. Not for me, anyway. You never really stop feeling, you just get better at hiding it. You learn to keep your voice steady, your hands calm, your face unreadable. But inside you're still human, still vulnerable, still searching for meaning in the things you can't explain. Last night was one of those nights that catches you off guard. I wasn't in the middle of anything dramatic, no storm outside, no emotional conversation, no heavy thoughts weighing on me. It was just another quiet night, the kind where the house settles into its bones, where the ticking of a clock in the other room feels louder than it should, where you sit down for a moment and somehow end up staring into the kind of silence that makes you aware of your own heartbeat. I didn't plan on staying awake. I didn't plan on thinking about life. But that's how it happens, meaning finds you when you're not looking for it. I was sitting alone in that familiar chair by the window. The wood creaks a little when you lean back, but I've never bothered to fix it. Some things are better left with character. The night outside was dark, real dark, the kind that makes the world feel smaller. My coffee had gone cold a long while ago, but I still held the cup in my hand, not really drinking it, just holding on to something warm because it made the quiet feel less empty. My eyes drifted to the wall across from me, not focusing on anything, just letting my thoughts wander where they wanted. But then something changed, something subtle at first. The air in the room shifted, like the pressure dropped or the temperature rose. I couldn't quite tell. It was the kind of change you don't hear or see. You feel it. Deep, quiet, heavy. I sat up a little straighter without even realizing it. My chest tightened, not in fear, but in awareness. I've been in rooms with powerful people, men whose presence alone could shift the energy. This wasn't like that. This felt sacred, the kind of presence that demands stillness, not out of intimidation but out of reverence. The shadows in the room seemed to move, not away from something, but toward something, toward him. I felt warmth behind me, like the rising sun on your back, even though it was well past midnight. My first instinct was to turn slowly, but my body reacted before I could think. When my eyes moved to the corner of the room, the darkness there didn't look like darkness anymore. It shimmered, almost like air rising from heat. A soft glow began to shape itself, faint at first, then brighter, almost as if someone was lighting a candle behind frosted glass. I blinked once, twice, wanting to be sure I wasn't imagining it, but imagination doesn't breathe, and the presence in that corner felt alive. The light grew stronger, spreading across the room without burning, just illuminating. And in that glow, I saw a figure, not hazy, not dreamlike, clear, solid, real. A man, but more than a man. A presence that didn't need introduction, didn't need explanation. My heart pounded in a way I haven't felt in decades, not from fear, but from recognition. A part of me that I thought had gone quiet suddenly stirred awake. It was Jesus, standing right there, in my home, in that quiet hour. There were no trumpets, no thunder, no beams of golden light from the heavens, just a calm, steady presence that filled the room with a peace I can't fully describe. His face carried something I've never seen in any man, compassion that didn't weaken, his strength, authority that didn't erase, his gentleness. His eyes, they held something timeless, like they'd seen every soul, every mistake, every victory, and still carried love that didn't waver. I couldn't speak. My throat locked up, not because I was scared, but because words felt too small, too fragile for a moment like this. I felt exposed, like every thought I'd buried, every regret I'd carried, every question I'd avoided. He saw all of it without me having to say a thing, yet there was no judgment in his gaze, just truth. and a kind of sorrow, like he wished the world understood something it keeps ignoring. He didn't move at first. He just looked at me, and I swear it felt like he was looking through the years, through the noise, through the life I've lived, right into the parts of me I never talk about, the parts I don't even admit to myself sometimes. And something in me understood. He hadn't come just to visit. He hadn't come for comfort or conversation. He had come with a purpose, a message. When he finally spoke, his voice wasn't loud. It didn't echo. It didn't shake the walls. It was soft, steady, but carried the weight of 1,000 storms behind it. A voice you feel more than you hear. He said my name, not the way most people say it, not with curiosity or respect or habit. He said it like someone who knew me before I even became me. And right then, every muscle in my body went still. He told me something is coming, something dangerous, something subtle, something that won't look like a threat when it arrives. He called it a deception, one that the world will embrace without realizing its cost. And the way he said it, it wasn't a warning for someday. It was a warning for now. Something already moving in the shadows, already whispering into minds, already walking toward us. I tried to ask what he meant, but the words stayed trapped inside me. All I could do was listen. All I wanted to do was listen. Because deep down, I could feel the truth of what he was saying, even before the explanation came. The world is changing, people are changing, hearts are drifting without noticing, and whatever this deception is, it's not coming with fire or fear. It's coming quietly, softly, wrapped in something that looks good, comforting, harmless, the kind of lie that doesn't need to be believed all at once. It just needs to be tolerated, and the rest happens on its own. As he spoke, the room felt brighter, warmer, heavier with meaning. Every sentence felt like a seed being planted, something meant to grow after he left. He wasn't giving me information. He was giving me responsibility, a message to share, a warning to echo, a truth to repeat before it's too late. And I knew, standing in that presence, that this moment was not for me alone. It was for anyone willing to hear, anyone willing to open their eyes, anyone willing to recognize what's coming before it arrives. And as I looked at him, at the calm strength in his face, at the sorrow in his eyes, at the love that radiated even through the seriousness of his warning, I realized something. This wasn't about fear. This wasn't about danger. This was about mercy, a chance to prepare, a chance to stay awake, a chance to see the deception for what it is, before it becomes too familiar to question. He didn't come to scare me. He came to wake me up. When he finished speaking, the room didn't go silent in the way you'd expect. It wasn't an empty silence. It was a heavy one, the kind you feel sitting in your chest, the kind that holds on to you long after the words are spoken. I could still sense his presence, still see the light around him, but something in the air shifted again. Not in a frightening way, in a way that told me what came next wasn't going to be easy to hear. I could feel it tightening inside me, like my spirit knew there was more, something deeper, something harder, something he wasn't revealing lightly. His expression changed too. There was a seriousness in his eyes that went beyond warning. It was the kind of look a father gives a child before telling them something they need to hear, even if it hurts. I tried to steady my breathing, but it felt like the room itself was breathing with me. He stepped closer, not walking, not gliding, just appearing nearer in a way that felt natural even though it shouldn't have been. And when he was close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating off him, he said something I wasn't expecting. He said, "The deception will not come from the world first. It will come from those who claim to belong to me." That sentence hit me harder than any punch I've taken in my life. I felt my stomach twist, my chest tighten. I didn't want to believe it, but the truth of his words sank straight into me. He wasn't talking about outsiders. He wasn't talking about enemies of faith. He was talking about people who gather in his name, people who carry Bibles, people who sing songs on Sundays but have slowly drifted on the inside without ever noticing. He said that the deception would spread through comfort before it spread through chaos, through agreement before conflict, through people wanting to be accepted more than they want to be righteous, through leaders who crave applause more than truth. He said that many will trade discernment for popularity, conviction for convenience, holiness for a version of love that demands no obedience. His voice wasn't angry. It was wounded. Like someone watching the ones they love walk straight into a trap, smiling as they go. The way he spoke made it clear this deception won't look dark. It will look kind. It will look modern. It will look reasonable. It will look like progress. And that's why so many won't see it for what it is. I felt something rise in my chest, a mix of grief and frustration. I wanted to ask him why. Why let this happen? Why allow something so subtle, so dangerous, to even take root? But he knew the question before it even formed in my mind. He looked at me with that same depth in his eyes and said, "Because love allows choice, and choice reveals the heart." And in that moment, it made sense, not in a logical way, but in a way that resonated deep inside. You can't measure loyalty without choice. You can't measure faith without the option to walk away. You can't measure devotion without the presence of temptation. A world without deception would also be a world without true obedience. Still, I didn't feel peace. I felt the weight growing heavier inside me. I realized that what he was revealing wasn't just a warning, it was a responsibility, a mission, something I would be held accountable for if I ignored it. And he knew the struggle going on inside me. I saw it in his eyes. He didn't need me to be perfect. He didn't need me to be fearless. He needed me to be willing. That's all he ever asks. He shifted his gaze slightly, looking past me, almost as if he saw something through the walls, through the world, through time itself. And then he said something that sent a chill through me. They will follow the voice that sounds familiar, not realizing it is not mine. That line echoed in my mind. I knew exactly what he meant. We live in a world full of voices, voices that promise peace, voices that promise purpose, voices that promise freedom, as long as you don't question them. Voices that preach comfort instead of repentance, self over sacrifice, feelings over truth. Voices that sound close enough to the real thing that people don't bother to look deeper. And he said this deception will grow because it won't ask people to give up faith. It will only ask them to redefine it, twist it, soften it, bend it just enough that it no longer resembles the truth he gave. Not rejection, redefinition. That's the part that shook me the most, because people don't notice redefining. It happens slow, quiet, one compromise at a time. And by the time they realize what they've accepted, the damage is done. His voice grew quieter when he spoke next, but the softness made it even more powerful. Tell them to stay awake. Tell them to test every voice. Tell them to return to what I said, not what they wish I had said. And I felt that deep, like a command written straight onto my bones. I didn't argue. I didn't question. I couldn't. His words carried a weight that didn't feel optional. They carried truth that demanded response. And then something happened that I wasn't prepared for. He lifted his hand, not fast, not slow, just steady. And when his hand moved, the entire atmosphere changed. The room felt wider, like I was standing inside a place bigger than the house around me. I saw something like a veil pull back behind him, not a curtain, not fabric, more like a layer of reality I'd never noticed before. And behind that veil, I saw movement, shapes, shadows, people. Not clear, not defined, but enough to know they represented multitudes, and these multitudes were walking towards something bright but not holy, something appealing but not pure, something that looked good but felt wrong. He said, "This is what is coming, and many will follow it gladly." That's when the sorrow in his eyes hit me harder than any warning. This wasn't anger about rebellion. This was heartbreak over blindness. And I realized that this deception isn't coming to destroy violently. It's coming to replace quietly. To replace truth with almost truth. That's the danger. Not darkness, but imitation light. And as I watched those shadowed figures moving, I felt a fear rise not for myself, but for the world. For believers who trust too easily. For hearts that love inspiration more than instruction. For the generation that wants comfort without correction. And I finally understood why he came. Why he chose this moment. Why this warning mattered. He didn't come to frighten me. He came to prepare me. He came to prepare us. He came because time is moving faster than we realize, and the deception is already beginning. When the vision behind him faded, the room returned to its ordinary shape, but nothing felt ordinary anymore. I stood there like a man caught between two worlds, still trying to comprehend what I had just seen. My breath felt shallow, and for a second I didn't know if my legs were going to hold me. It was like waking up from a dream that was too vivid to be a dream, too real to dismiss, too heavy to ignore, and before I could gather my thoughts, he turned his eyes back to me. That look, it wasn't the stern gaze of a judge. It was the steady, searching look of someone who knows you completely, your weaknesses, your history, your doubts, and still chooses to stand with you. He said, "Clint, this warning is not given to frighten you. It is given to strengthen you." And somehow, hearing him speak my name with that calm authority made the weight shift inside me, not disappear, just settle, like the difference between a burden and a mission. He said that deception only works on those who live distracted, those who drift, those who forget to guard their hearts. And then, almost as if he were revealing a secret, he said, "And that is why I am calling many to wake up before the shaking begins." Those words lingered in the air, wake up before the shaking. I didn't know what kind of shaking. He meant physical, spiritual, cultural, but something in his voice told me it would impact everything. I felt a tightening in my throat, the way you feel when you know something big is coming, and there's no way to stop it. So I asked him, my voice barely above a whisper, "Lord, why me? Why tell me this?" And he didn't hesitate, "Because people listen to you, and they need to hear what I am saying, not what the world is saying." I can't tell you what that did to me. All my life I've played characters who stood strong, who carried grit and power, who acted like they had all the answers. But hearing him say that made me realize how small I really am, how unqualified, how undeserving. And yet, that's the strange thing about him. He doesn't choose the loudest, he chooses the willing. He stepped closer again, and for a moment I thought time itself slowed. His presence wrapped around me, not like a force pushing me down, but like a warm gravity pulling me into honesty. And that's when he said something that shook me more than everything else combined. "There will be signs, and many will ignore them. Tell them not to." His voice was softer now, almost mournful. He said deception grows in silence, in apathy, in the space where people assume they're safe because danger doesn't look dangerous. He said many believers will look for miracles but ignore truth. They'll chase experiences but overlook scripture. They'll trust charisma but neglect character. And when the deception comes wearing the costume of kindness, they won't recognize the trap because they stopped recognizing his voice. I wanted to promise him I'd deliver the message perfectly, but I knew I couldn't. I knew I'd stumble, I'd hesitate, I'd mess up the wording. So instead, I said the only honest thing I could manage, "I'll try." And he smiled, not the kind of smile you see in paintings or movies, but the kind that reaches deeper than sight. I could feel it more than I could describe it, a smile that told me trying mattered to him, effort mattered, obedience mattered, and then he placed his hand on my shoulder. Or maybe it wasn't a physical hand, maybe it was his presence pressing against me with purpose. Whatever it was, it filled me with a warmth I can't compare to anything earthly. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't dramatic. It was steady, anchoring, like a soldier receiving final instructions before being sent into a battlefield bigger than he ever imagined. He said, "The deception is not coming to the world. It is coming to the church. And when the world sees the church fall, many hearts will grow cold. Warn them before that happens." I didn't know how to respond. Those words hit like a blow straight to the center of my spirit, not because they were frightening, but because they were true. You could feel the truth in them. You could feel the urgency, the heartbreak, the love. I opened my mouth to speak, but before I could, the light around him brightened, not harsh, not blinding, just pure. And I realized the moment was ending. He was leaving, not abandoning, just returning to where he came from. He said, "Stay close to me. Test every spirit. Do not let your heart grow dull. And speak what I've shown you." And then, with the same gentle authority he carried from the moment he arrived, he said, "I am with you." Those 4 words, they carried more weight than the entire vision. I felt them echo inside me, sinking deeper than fear, deeper than doubt, deeper than the warning itself. And in one breath, the light collapsed inward like a star drawing into itself, and he was gone. The room fell back into its normal dimness. The silence was sharp. My heartbeat was loud in my ears. I stood there alone, but I didn't feel alone. I felt changed, marked, responsible. I sank into the chair beside my bed because my legs couldn't hold me anymore. I ran my hands over my face, trying to ground myself, trying to make sense of everything. For a second I wondered if it really happened, if my mind had conjured it. But that thought didn't last long. Not when the weight of his words still pressed against my chest. Not when the memory of his presence felt more real than anything I've ever experienced. Not when every part of my spirit knew this was no dream. I sat there for what felt like hours, thinking about the world, thinking about the church, thinking about how easily people follow anything that sounds comforting. And I realized this warning won't mean much if it stays locked inside me. It wasn't given to make me feel special. It wasn't given for curiosity. It wasn't given as a private revelation. It was given for a reason, a responsibility, a message that has to be spoken before the deception spreads far enough that people stop questioning it. So that's why I'm telling you this. Not because I want attention, not because I'm trying to be dramatic, not because I'm looking for a reaction. I'm telling you because he told me to. Because the world is changing faster than we realize. Because the lines between truth and imitation are getting thinner every day. Because the deception he showed me isn't coming someday, it's already taking root. I can feel it now when I look around. I can sense it in the way people chase comfort more than conviction, inspiration more than scripture, teachers more than truth. And if what he said is true, and I know it is, then the only thing that's going to protect us is staying close to him, testing every voice, holding on to what he actually said, not what the world says about him. Because the deception won't look like rebellion. It'll look like progress. It'll sound compassionate. It'll feel easy. It'll feel right. And that's why it's dangerous. I'm just a man, an actor, a storyteller. But this isn't a script. This isn't a scene. This isn't a performance. This is a warning. And my prayer is that you don't just hear my voice, you hear his. Because he's calling all of us to wake up before the shaking begins. He's calling us to stand firm before the deception comes dressed as light. And he's calling us to remember that truth doesn't change, even when the world does. That's why I'm speaking. That's why he appeared. And that's why you're hearing this now, before it's too late.